about how this all came about.
Who picked this company? Because President Trump, a few months ago, in a New York Times article said, I have a guy who's unbelievable at doing swimming pools. He looked at it. He called me up. He said, sir, we can do something on it.
The National Park Service and the leaders on the National Mall are the ones that picked it.
A no-bid contract is reserved for situations where, quote, any delay would cause serious injury to the government.
We had 19 fountains across the city that didn't work.
That's the serious injury to the government?
On federal lands. Okay, this story, I mean, Trump spent weeks saying he chose his pool guy for this contract, and the White House told the New York Times that Trump didn't have a personal relationship with the contractor, but was familiar with their work. Then Doug Burgum told you that the contractor Trump kept talking about wasn't part of the project at all. And of course, the work is incredibly shoddy. What is going on here? To the degree you know?
Well, first and foremost, thanks for having me on, Jen. And thank you for your reporting, I think, in exposing these improprieties. As you saw from that exchange, there are more questions than answers. The reality is that Secretary Burgum really couldn't offer a cogent rationale for why his agency gave a no-bid $13 million contract to this contractor who apparently, by all accounts, has never had a federal contract before. And of course, as you've covered extensively the conflicting reports, one day the president claims that it's his pool guy. Then he denies that that's the case and that he had nothing to do with it. The secretary really had no particular answer to the questions that I posed. So I think that we're going to find out that there are even more improprieties. At best, it is a gross waste of taxpayer resources. At worst, it's another violation, potentially, of federal procurement laws. And I think more generally, it's symptomatic of the grift and the fraud and I think the corruption that we've seen within this administration just metastasize over the course of the last 18 months.
Your point about it being a pattern is so important. I mean, the reflecting pool, for those of us who live in Washington or anyone who's visited, is obviously a historic landmark, but it's bigger than that. I mean, they're giving out no-bid contracts to companies doing not just that, but the ballroom renovation, repairing fountains in Lafayette Park. Help us understand why it's so important. I mean, I know the answer to this, but you actually have oversight over this. For there to actually be a bidding process and for these contracts to go through official processes through the federal government.
Well, first I'll say anyone who doubts that this is pervasive throughout the administration, look no further than former Secretary Kristi Noem, as you know, who was fired at least in part based off of all of the improprieties there that her department was engaged in under her leadership. Look, at the end of the day, this is taxpayer money. It is not Donald Trump's money. It doesn't belong to his billionaire cabinet that he's assembled. It is the money of hardworking taxpayers. We have federal procurement laws for a reason, so that ultimately the taxpayers are not getting fleeced by virtue of any potential conflicts of interest. And of course, in this case, you have Donald Trump saying this is going to cost $1 million, $2 million. It's ballooned now to $13 million. Lord only knows how high that number will ultimately go. By the way, just contextually, he's asked Congress for a $10 billion slush fund for these vanity projects while they are gutting the public land management agencies that folks out west in Colorado and the Rocky Mountain West that I represent rely on day in, day out. So I think the American people are fed up with this kind of corruption, and that's why, in part, his unfavorability is so high.
It's such an important point. I mean, federal government money is not endless. It's not growing on trees. If they're spending it on things like repainting bright blue, American flag blue, the reflecting pool, they're not spending it on other things.
Exactly.
I'm so grateful you're here. Thank you so much for being here with me and for grilling Secretary Burgum there today. It was fun to watch you do.
Trump spent weeks bragging on camera that he personally brought in his pool guys to renovate one of the most iconic landmarks in Washington. He told reporters he had the best people, claimed they were excited about the project, and acted like he had personally rescued the Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool from disaster. But the moment Congress started asking questions and reports surfaced that the project was turning into a complete mess, Trump suddenly wanted nothing to do with it. Watch how fast the story changed. First, it was my contractors, my people, the best swimming pool experts. Then suddenly it became, I didn't give out the contract. I never used these people before. Interior handled it. And that right there is the pattern. Trump takes credit when he thinks something will look flashy on television, and then the second it blows up in public, everybody else gets thrown under the bus. And Congressman Joe Neguse completely exposed the contradiction in front of the entire country. because the administration cannot keep its story straight. Trump publicly claimed he chose the people doing the work. The White House later claimed he merely knew of their work. Then, Interior Secretary Doug Burgum told Congress the contractor Trump kept talking about was apparently not even involved in the project the way Trump described. So which version is true? Because they cannot all be true at the same time. And Burgum clearly realized how bad this sounded the moment he was pressed on why a company with no meaningful federal contracting history somehow landed a massive no-bid contract that exploded from under $2 million to more than $13 million. And then comes the most ridiculous part of this entire story. The reflecting pool now reportedly has bubbles in the waterproofing, uneven coating, and bizarre shades of bright blue paint all over it. This is the Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool, not a resort casino swimming pool in Miami. But Trump proudly explained the color choice anyway, saying they picked American flag blue. That is not satire. That actually happened. They rushed a historic national landmark project, bypassed normal contracting rules, handed out a special no-bid deal, and somehow ended up repainting the reflecting pool bright blue while the costs ballooned into the tens of millions of taxpayer dollars. And the panic started the second Congress began connecting the dots. Because Neguse did not just question the cost, he questioned the entire process. A no-bid federal contract is supposed to be reserved for emergencies where delays would supposedly cause serious harm to the government. And the justification here? Broken fountains and a July 4th celebration deadline. That was the excuse used to bypass the normal oversight process. Meanwhile, the administration cannot explain who specifically pushed the contractor through, why the costs exploded so dramatically, or why the quality issues are already surfacing before the project is even completed. And watch how quickly administration officials shifted into damage control mode. Burgum avoided giving direct answers. Trump tried distancing himself on Truth Social. The White House started changing the wording, because they know exactly how bad this looks. This is not just about paint colors or construction delays anymore. This is about an administration once again treating taxpayer money like it is their own private vanity fund. One day, Trump is proudly standing in front of cameras talking about his personal pool experts. The next day, he is pretending he barely even knows the contractors exist. And this is why the hearing mattered so much. Because this is the exact reason federal procurement laws exist in the first place. To stop politically connected contractors from getting rushed sweetheart deals with little oversight while taxpayers are left holding the bill when everything goes wrong. The cost reportedly jumped from around $1.8 million to more than $13 million. And officials are already warning that number could still rise even further. At the same time, agencies responsible for public lands and maintenance are facing cuts while millions are suddenly available for flashy America 250 projects designed for television optics. Joe Neguse said something incredibly important during that exchange. This is not just one isolated incident. It is part of a larger pattern. The administration keeps pushing massive projects through unusual channels, bypassing normal scrutiny, and then scrambling for excuses when reporters or Congress start asking questions. And the moment someone challenges the narrative publicly, Trump immediately distances himself and acts like somebody else made all the decisions. Drop a comment and tell me this. If Trump was proudly taking credit for the project when he thought it looked good, should he also take responsibility now that Congress is exposing the cost overruns, the no-bid contract, and the growing questions surrounding the entire deal? And if you want more coverage of these hearings and political clashes every single day, hit subscribe and stay tuned because this story is clearly far from over.